Hello, I'm Miss Addie, and I wanted to welcome you to our virtual open house. I am your student's IB junior level chemistry teacher. So what that means is that I'm going to end up having your student for a total of 2 years, and sometimes, depending on if I had your student for honors chemistry, a total of 3 years in teaching them chemistry. So I'm excited to continue on their chemistry journey to get them into some of the more in-depth uh, a little bit more complex topics. So before we begin, let me just tell you a little bit about me. So I graduated from the University of West Georgia, and I did 3 years of undergraduate research in inorganic chemistry, and I graduated with a bachelor's of science degree in chemistry. So my degree is in chemistry, and then I decided once I graduated that I wanted to go into teaching. So it took a little while, but I finally got into the classroom and I am now into my 10th year of secondary education teaching science, which I can't believe it's been 10 years. I did 2 years at Island Village Montessori School and 4 years at Sarasota Military Academy, and now I'm in my fourth year at Venice High School. And this is going to be, I believe, my seventh year teaching IB chemistry. So I'm really well versed in the IB program. So if you have any questions, you can feel free to reach out and ask me any of those questions. In addition to my teaching, I am also the Study Abroad Program Coordinator and the Science National Honor Society sponsor. So the Study Abroad program is pretty awesome. And while we're on the subject, I just wanted to let you know that your student is invited to travel with me next summer of 2022. We're going to stay in the United States and go to Bryce Canyon, Grand Canyon, and Zion National Park. So I usually take students on an international trip once a year, but because of COVID, the quarantine restrictions are really strict. So this year I decided to keep it in the States. And when we go to Bryce Canyon, we're going to do some hiking. And while we're in the Grand Canyon, we're going to do some more hiking and some whitewater rafting. And then in Zion National Park, we're going to do some more hiking and then some stargazing. So this is definitely meant for that outdoorsy person. And so I really want to invite you and your student to attend the virtual meeting on September 21st at 6 p.m. This will be via Zoom, and you can scan the QR code up in the top right, or you can copy down the link down at the bottom left in blue. And all that does is it'll RSVP to me that you're interested and that you're going to plan on coming to the meeting on the 21st. And I'll cover everything about costs, safety, itinerary, when we're going, what we're doing, what all is included. And yeah, so I hope you can attend the meeting. Like I said, because we're not allowed to go outside of the States, this will be a really great opportunity for your student to still travel and get to see everything they've learned about in the classroom come to life in real life. And anyone's welcome to travel with us, whether it's your student, you, a family member, a friend of your student from another high school. It doesn't have to be a Venice High School student to travel. So hopefully you can join us. All right, so back to IB chemistry. Some of the learning objectives for IB chemistry is to study those more advanced chemistry topics than previously learned. We're going to do some more in-depth laboratory exercises to explore and reinforce the content that the students are learning. And eventually the students will be designing their own experiments and the procedures to go along with that. So the goal of the course is not only to prepare them for the exam at the end of their senior year, but also to have them develop a more thorough background in chemistry that can be applied to their personal lives. So this year, and like I said in the beginning, this is a 2-year course. So I'm only going to focus on what's going to go on this particular year. So this year, quarter 1 and quarter 2 are worth 40% of the student score that I give them in this class. And then 20% of this semester is going to go towards their midterm, 40% for quarter 3 and 4 in the second semester. And then the final exam is worth 20% of their second semester grade. So that's the score I give them, A, B, C, D, whatever, that they get from me. And then IB gives them a secondary score that ranges on a scale of 1 to 7. And that score is made up of 80% of their external assessment, which is the 3 papers they take at the end of their senior year. And then the other 20% of that score comes from their internal assessment or their IA. So both of those things, the external assessment and the IA, are going to take place next year. So we don't have to worry about that right now. This year, the topics that the students are going to be studying is measurement and data processing. Right now, we're talking about atomic structure and periodicity. Then we'll move into chemical bonding and structure. Finally, stoichiomic relationships, energetics and thermochemistry, equilibrium, and we'll wrap up the year with acids and bases. And so then next year, the students will have me their senior year, and we'll talk about some new and different topics. All right, so in my classroom, I do what's called a flipped classroom. And a flipped classroom is where I give the students the notes the night before, and it's the student's responsibility to look at the PowerPoint, look in their book, and go through, highlight, and annotate all the important parts of the notes. And then when they come to class the next day, we discuss any issues that the students have with their notes, any misconceptions, and we take the class time to actually do the homework in class. So we're doing practice problems together, we're going through examples together. So that's what makes it a flipped classroom, is the notes are done at home where the homework is done at school. So it's really important that the students take the time to do the notes ahead of time so that when they come to class, they know what we're talking about. Your students are also going to be engaged in what's called the Group 4 project. So Group 4 in IB just means the sciences. So it's a science project. And with this Group 4 project, what the students will do is they'll be paired with a biologist and a physicist student. So a student in biology, a student in physics, and then them being a student in chemistry will work together on a common idea, and they'll bring the chemistry knowledge, the biology student will bring the biology knowledge, and physics bring the physics knowledge. And they'll kind of work together from their different aspects to solve or work on the project. It's really fun. The students have a great time, and that'll be sometime in semester 2. I mentioned the internal assessment earlier. So all the labs that we do in class are mandated by IB, and they are all in preparation of the internal assessment, which is essentially a giant lab that the students come up with their own procedure and own experimentation for. So all the labs help prep them for the internal assessment. Even the lab reports help them in preparation for their IA, because at the end of their IA, they're going to be writing a lab report that goes along with their experiment that they made. So if a student is absent, it's really important that they schedule a time to make up with me the lab that they missed, because it's mandated by IB that they do them. 20% of your student's grade comes from employability, which pretty much just means that the student is focused on what they're supposed to be doing in class, that they're not goofing off or putting somebody else at risk in a lab, that they're not on their phones and that sort of thing, that they're showing up on time. Really not something I have to worry about with the IB juniors, but just something that you're aware of. And then starting in the second quarter, we're going to start doing what's called Chemistry of the Weeks, which is a 5-question set that they get every week. And it's a new set of questions, but it's all review material so that the students can start to accumulate that knowledge of things that they've learned before. Because if you don't use it, you lose it. And so I really want to make sure that it's not in one ear and out the other, because everything that they learned this year and next year will be assessed at the end of their senior year. So I just want to make sure that they stay on top of that knowledge and that they don't forget how to do the things that they learned. So in the class, there are 2 sets of apps that I really encourage the students to download on their phone and to utilize. The first one is Remind, and the Remind code is up on the screen. I think all the students are a part of the Remind, but if they're not, just have them type in that code in their Remind app. And what this will allow me to do is to communicate with the students, just a quick text like, hey, don't forget we have a lab tomorrow, or don't forget your lab report is due at midnight tonight. And then the students can reach out to me just real quick, like, Miss Addie, I don't understand how to do X or Y, and I can get back to them as soon as possible. The other app I'm going to actually give you a quick tutorial on is the Blackboard Learn app. And this is just a online extension of the classroom. So everything I pass out in class shows up on Blackboard. Homework, the notes, the chapter downloads, any tutorial videos, things like that are all on Blackboard. So it's really important that the students are checking their Blackboard Learn every day and utilizing it every day. So these are the expectations if a student is either quarantined for testing positive to COVID or for contact tracing. So the main thing is to make sure that the students are accessing their Blackboard course, because like I said, everything we do in class shows up on Blackboard. So then that way they don't fall behind while they're in quarantine. If a student is absent, as far as makeup work goes, they have 1 day to turn it in for every day that they're excused absence. So what that means is if a student is absent for 5 days, then they have 5 days upon their return to turn in the work that they missed while they were gone. The alternative lab assignment, as I mentioned previously, all these labs are mandated by IB, so the students have to do them. So if a student is absent the day that we do a lab, they need to schedule a time after school to meet with me to complete the lab that they missed. Any test a student misses, they really need to take it within 10 days that they return to school so that I can make sure that they're not falling behind on that material. And they can either do that after school or during lunch. And then you'll get this email from me with the quarantine expectations. And it's really important that you and the students respond to that email within 24 hours. Otherwise, I have to pass your contact information along to the quarantine coordinator who will call home. And if you continue to be unresponsive, then it's possible that a social worker may be sent to the home to conduct a visit. And this is really important because we want to make sure that students that are quarantined are not falling behind, because it turns into this snowball effect. You miss 1 day, but that's 7 classes that you're missing. And so that tends to add up over time. And we just want to make sure that we're constantly in communication with each other during that quarantine, that the student isn't falling behind. So some things you can do to help is you can communicate. If there's something that you need to share with me about your student in a way that I can help them in the classroom, feel free to let me know what that is. You can reach me via that email on the screen. Please encourage your students to check Remind, Blackboard, and Crosspoint, because I keep my grades up to date and the students will always know their score for my class at all times. And then if a student really wants additional help with IB chemistry, I recommend getting the Oxford Study Guide that's on the screen. That is a picture of the most current edition. You can purchase it from Amazon or any major bookstore. Just make sure that it's the most current edition that they're getting, because it has like helpful hints in there, extra practice problems, and all those sorts of things. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to walk you through the Blackboard Learn course so you can see where the students can access everything that they need to access for the course. All right, so when the students log into their Blackboard course, this is what they'll see. So up at the top in red, those are just the quarantine expectations, once again, available right there so that the students can see what they need to do while they're in quarantine. And then if you scroll down, you can see this is what they need to do for that evening, the homework and all that sort of stuff. And then if you click on the link, it takes them right to the folder where they can find the chapter download, if they need the digital copy of the textbook, PowerPoints and notes, practice worksheets, labs, the solutions to the practice problems within the chapter, fast facts, which are kind of like Spark Notes study guide, a quiz where they can kind of test themselves. And then there's other, on the left-hand side, other information that they can access. So like their course syllabus, FAQs under class information, Dropbox. This is where they turn in all their lab reports. Calendar shows what they have due coming up. So you can see on the 15th that they have an assignment that's due. And then, yeah, everything else you can see on the left-hand side of the screen is for each topic as we go through. So please make sure that the students are really checking Blackboard, like I said, every day, especially when they're quarantined, so that they can see what they need to make up. Well, that's it. And like I said, feel free to reach out to me anytime if you have a question or a concern. I am here for you and the students, so just let me know. Otherwise, let's have a great year.